Welcome to Fluxx the board game. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Fluxx, Fluxx is a game where all of the rules are in a constant state of flux. And so, with that said, the rules will change as the game goes. Now, Fluxx is usually a card game, but this is Fluxx the board game. So there's a lot of different Fluxx games out there, mostly in the card format, obviously. But this is the first Fluxx the board game. Now, we're going to go into the assumption that you haven't even watched any of my Fluxx videos. I've only got one, actually, technically. So we will just discuss how Fluxx the board game works. And there are some differences between the card game and the board game, obviously. But more or less, the rules are almost the same in a lot of respects. Now, the way this game works is we have a bunch of tiles here, all next to each other on the board. Normally, in the card game, the object of the game would be to complete a goal. And usually, having two cards that equals the goal would claim you the goal. Like having, looks like a piece of pizza and a loaf of bread. If you had both of those in your hand in the card game, which are keeper cards in the card game, you would win the goal, which would win the game. But when you play Fluxx the board game, you'll notice we have a little pegboard here on the right to indicate the number 3. That means the first player to win 3 goals wins the game. So instead of winning just 1 goal to win the game, you actually have to win 3 goals in order to win the game, and the player who does this first wins the game. Now that sounds easy, but this is the board game, not the card game. So, in order to get those, you need to get 2 of your markers on those goals. So, for instance, for thick crust pizza, you need to get one of your player markers on that loaf of bread, and you need to get the other player marker on this piece of cheese pizza, or pepperoni pizza, if you will. And then once you do that, and you have them both there at the same time, and that's the current goal, then you claim the goal automatically. Now, like I said, goals can change. You might be going for that goal, but a player can play a goal from their hand and change it. And then, obviously, that won't be the current goal anymore. So that can change how you get goals. You can be working on a goal while the other person was already planning on playing a goal and was putting his or her markers towards that location, and then when he got them right on the spaces he wanted them to be, he played his goal card and won the game, basically. So that's something that can happen. So holding on to your goal in your hand, if you have one in your hand, might be in your best interest, because your opponents won't know what you have in your hand. So they won't know what you're planning. So that's something to note. Now, you have to win 3 of them, so just because thick crust pizza might get blocked by another goal, once that goal is complete, then whatever was below it would be next. So maybe thick crust pizza would be back, and so then maybe you could still try to acquire that goal. Now, we have a pegboard for the rules as well. So all of the rules start with draw 1 card, play 1 card, and then move 2 spaces, and then the hand limit is, there is no hand limit currently, but that rule can change to a hand limit of just a few cards. That rule for the movement can also change. You could also move more than 2 spaces at a time. Play a card could be play 4 cards, for all you know. Draw a card could also be changed, and there's a few additional rules as well for the tiles. You can, right now, they're all in no. But if you get the rule that rotates a tile, it could be yes, and you can actually rotate tiles like this, for instance. So that could be one of the rules that you get to do on your turn, is rotate a tile, even if there's pieces already on it. Another thing you could do is uproot a tile. What that means is you could move a tile to another location as part of your turn, if you will, as well. That could also change. So it's in a constant state of flux. And then we even have wraparound. What that means is you could have a marker over here, and if you have the wraparound rule in effect, you could go like this to there, basically. Normally that wouldn't be allowed, but if you had that real active, that would be. Or from here to here, for instance. Now, there are things to note about the board itself, placing and all that. So normally when you leave the starting tile, you can only go to 4 different locations. Here, 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 or here. And that's it. It means you can't go straight to here. That means you can't go straight to the cookies. That means you can't go straight to that brain. And that means you can't go to those balloons either, obviously. Now, this is a portal. So if you move your player token here, you get teleported from here to here instantly. But then you just stay here. You don't move, you don't teleport again. It's a one-time instant teleportation when you either land on a portal or get bumped to a portal. Now, bumping. Let's talk about bumping. Let's say, oh, I don't know. Let's say a player is here on the ice cream. You want to also go to the ice cream, and you are right here. You can bump him off to another location nearby, like the moon, for instance, or this hexagon space, for bumping. Now, here's another thing to note. Another thing to note for bumping. If there's already a piece on a nearby space and you decide you want to bump him here, that's not allowed because there's already a space, there's already a piece here. However, if the piece was on this hexagon tile and you bumped the player here, that would be allowed because you can have multiple pieces on a hexagon. So you could have, something like that easily. That would be allowed. Another thing you can do is you can also bump people to portals. And if you bump a player to a portal, so let's say I'm blue, I just landed on blue, and actually I landed on blue over here, and I decided to, obviously I have to bump you because you are also on the same space, so I'm going to bump red to this portal. Then the red player would instantly get transported to the other portal. But that's where it would go. It wouldn't transport again, obviously. Now, if you are currently sitting on a portal and you want to move to the other portal, you can use a movement to teleport to the other side as a movement as well. So that's something you can do as well. And once again, there can be a lot of pieces on portals as well, just like with the hexagons. But that's basically how that all works. Now, like I said, if you wanted to acquire thick crust pizza, you would have to have one of your markers on the bread there, and you'd also have to have one of your markers on the pizza. Once you had both of those, then you would acquire that goal, and you would have one goal completed, and you would still need 2 more to win the game. So that's how that works. Now, there is other things to note and to consider. There are cards in here, besides goals, there are cards in here that are action cards, which are blue, which do a variety of different things. There are cards in here that are also rule cards that change the rules of the game, because this game is in a constant state of flux. But there's also leaper cards, which are green. Not keeper cards, because that was for nature flux, but for the board game, it's leaper cards. And so if you have a leaper card, you can leap to the corresponding place. Like I have one of them, in fact, in my hand. So let's just take a look at it. If you decide to play a leaper card as the card you're going to play, because you have to play a card every turn, unless of course you have to play more than one card. So if I was to play this, it says I would move the piece to the music and then discard this. So I would move one of my pieces, from here, for instance, to where the music was, because I'm going to leap right to it. Now, here's the cool thing. If a player is already on music, and you're going to leap to the music, then what happens is you bump that player back to there. So that's really cool. And that also adds to the ability of gaining access to the tile spots that you want to go to a lot easier. It makes it a lot easier if you can just leap to them. Now, when you are moving, you can move, because you can start the game off by moving a piece two places. So you can move the same piece, like 1, 2, for instance. Or you can move two different pieces, 1 space each. So 1 here and 1 here, for instance. That's also allowed. So it's up to you how you're going to get your pieces to their destination, and what cards can help you do that, of course. But that's basically how Fluxx will work. And everything, like I said, in this game is a constant state of flux. There's even a way for you to actually change what color you are. You could be the red player, and then when the game ends, you're actually the blue player now. So that can also change the way the game works. The red player could have done all of the work, gotten maybe 2 goals down. The blue player has no goals at all. Then you could end up being the blue player who has all the goals. That can also happen. So that's kind of interesting how you can end up changing who you are. The other player does all the work, you don't get anything, but you get this card that says, oh, you're that color now. And then you're that color, and that color's got all the goals, and they're about to win. That can also happen. So watch out for that. So in this game, just because you have completed the most goals and you're about to win, doesn't mean you will win, because the other player could steal victory by just simply changing colors with you, because there's a card that says that can happen. Or that if you get it, you play it. So that's really cool. I haven't actually gotten to see how that works yet, so we'll see how that all works for sure if I ever get around to getting that change the color. But still, that would be pretty funny to have come so far, to do so well, and the other player steals victory from you because they get a card that says, oh, I'm you now, and you're me, and vice versa. So this is definitely an interesting game. Now this game, because of that, doesn't take too long. Of course, you can make it longer. You can make it 6 goals to win the game instead of 3. If you really want to make the game a little longer, you can do that. But I'm going to start it off with 3 and play this game and see how it goes in the next video. So if you guys are interested, watch that next video and see who wins, red player or blue player. Alright, see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys for watching.